Hello there and welcome back, Cozy Club. We've got ourselves yet another legendary on its way, and most likely Wreck-It Ralph is going to be our next legendary. And as with all legendary characters, we're getting the characters in batches to go ahead and unlock the legendary. And typically, sometimes really great characters, other times horrible. Lumiere, Cogsworth, trash. Olaf, Hermes, trash. Sometimes there's some great characters like Meg and Donald Duck. And so in today's video, we're going to break down the first two characters that were released, with King Candy and Shank coming to DSA. So in today's video, we're going to go ahead, take an in-depth look at these characters, because after all, you want to look at how much gear you have to invest in them to go and get the event done. But on top of that, you want them to be great characters in all the other game modes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take an in-depth look at both King Candy and Shank. Well, let's waste no time getting right to today's video, and we're going to go ahead and jump into the first character of conversation, and that is going to be King Candy. Now, you guys know I love my villains. I try to make any villain work with my Ursula villain teams, and I test them out probably a little bit more than most characters. And with King Candy, he definitely offers some great things with the villains. We're going to have to see how all of them kind of work together with the Wreck-It Ralph characters, and if we're going to see more mechanics that we'll see and talk about here in just a moment. But first impressions of King Candy and Shank. Now, I do have a speed stone on King Candy. He's got 133 speed. With a speed stone, he does gain a lot going up to tier 9, but with minimal investment, doesn't have any stats that jump out of the page outside of his potency and his health being pretty phenomenal, as well as his tenacity at 33%. Now, on top of this, guys, if we take a look at his entire kit and what he does well, first and foremost, King Candy is going to be a tanking character for the villains, which is always needed. The villains need more and more tanks within the game, and with one of his stronger abilities, he's going to give himself a taunt and counterattack, which is great, and it's going to pair up nicely with the villains. Taking an in-depth look at these abilities, his basic attack here and his entire kit is kind of based around a long-forgotten debuff that wasn't introduced all that long ago, and that is going to be Sweeten, which you guys can see right here. Sweeten is going to go ahead and heal the character that deals the damage for 25% of the damage dealt. So it's kind of a pseudo-healing technique, and King Candy, he's all about the candy, baby. He's all about the candy. Currently, only Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse can do Sweeten and pump that out there. And typically, it just doesn't stay on the field a ton, because once it's hit, you're going to go ahead and heal your characters. And a lot of King Candy is based around how many Sweetens are out on the field. And so that doesn't mix really well. And we're going to have to see if there's any extra ways with the Wreck-It Ralph characters to get even more Sweetens on the field. Looking at the basic, you're going to be able to counter with it. It does pretty nice damage and has a very high critical chance hit, which it can deal decent against some solid heroes. Looking at his first special, Have Some Candy. Really creative, ingenious naming here. You're going to be able to deal up to about 1,500 damage 3 times. Now, each subsequent hit is going to hit 35% more bonus damage, and you're going to have a chance to go ahead and inflict Sweeten. On top of that, the best thing that I love to see, you're going to be doing damage, but also gaining that taunt. So you're not just taunting and really providing nothing for your team to open up the battle. Now, this is actually a pretty solid attack that can deal some nice damage over time. It's got to be under an Ursula to work the best. And again, it might have its own mechanic altogether with the rest of the Wreck-It Ralph crew. However, I will say he is a villain, and typically all the synergy that comes with legendaries don't include their villain counterparts. So we'll have to see if he has any synergy with the Wreck-It Ralph crew, because already looking into Sergeant Calhoun, it's only going to be hero characters. Now, one of my favorite things about King Candy is he is going to be a downtown villain, which right now they're in desperate need of just better characters in this faction and desperately need a leadership ability. However, King Candy, the gear is not going to... You're going to have a lot of DTV gear stashed up because there's not a lot of downtown villains worth investing in. So that is a nice kind of bonus with him. Looking at his AoE a la mode with All About the Sweets, baby, he's going to be doing an AoE of 2,000 damage nothing crazy to all opponents, and he'll be healing himself 50% of the damage dealt. So definitely nice to have a healing mechanic. He should always stay kind of healthy with a big health pool and the taunt. So I do really like that about the Candy. However, I will say, let's look at this other part. If the opponent already had Sweeten, you're going to remove 30% turn meter. Now, that's incredible. That's insane. It's just not easy to have Sweeten out on the field. So we're going to have to see how this kind of works out all together and how many stacks of Sweeten you can actually get out there. Now take King Candy, KC's basic first ability and second ability, wrap it all in a bow and check out the passive. This is what's really going to marry and put more of those Sweetens out there. King Candy is going to be able to gain 15% bonus offense against those opponents with Sweeten. And on top of that, on the turn in, if opponent evaded the attack or any attack, and we're looking at you, Baymax, from King Candy, he's going to go ahead and deal a nice chunk of damage. He's going to inflict 3 Sweetens, which, again, a good way to passively get that out there with no cooldown. And this attack is going to be unavoidable. So, really solid passive. I really like to see what the passive is going to do overall with some other characters. And it's going to build in nicely to get more effects, because the more Sweeten on the field, the more each and every ability is going to able to do more. So overall, King Candy is going to probably be a pretty solid character. I would hold off on investing anything into him at the moment, outside of just farming him up for the event or for the Wreck-It Ralph Legendary. Now, the nice thing is you can go in the side missions and unlock him, so you have access pretty quickly to get the King. However, I would just hold back till we see the rest of the kit. Now, the last note of King Candy is he should be great in the raids against poison to continue to heal up himself and take the taunt, and probably a good tank to have on that phase 1 in the Forbidden Depths. If you thought KC was a little Shank is something. Now, Cozy Club, you guys know I love testing characters. I love trying to come up with all different teams to see where they could possibly fit and spend hours and hours of day. But I gotta say, guys, Shank, outside of the raid, she just doesn't look that great. Now, I will tell you this, her passive is one of the better ones within the game. Unfortunately, it does have a 3-turn cooldown, but on turn start, you're gonna be able to remove 30% speed meter and inflict slow up to a max of 5. So overall, strong passive. You can get Intimidate on them as well. Really solid to open up the battle. Her speed is insane, but this passive is really where her insane, crazy amazingness ends. So I mentioned her speed. She's got lightning fast speed at 150. That's with the stone, and she's going to continue to gain even more going into gear 9. But when you look at the other abilities, she doesn't have the offense to hit very hard. Her first ability is all about haste and pumping out slows and flipping slows. That's kind of her catch. But she doesn't have the damage numbers to go and support that. Her basic is not going to do much outside of just purging some haste and inflicting slow. Now, her Shank You Very Much is a cleanse ability that will be nice for the Forbidden Depths, and it will be situational whenever you use it on the battlefield. I do like that there is some Wreck-It Ralph synergy, so we've got to give her a chance and see how haste and Sweeten and all these mechanics kind of work with these two characters. But right now, Shank You Very Much, not that great. Style for Miles, yes, it is stylish and it's a cool animation, but that's kind of where it ends. You're not dealing crazy damage. You're doing an okay flanking attack, and the damage will be increased per haste up to what? A maximum of 50%. If this thing did get a great critical hit, if you got a hit, you can extend the haste on her, and you can kind of maybe get this thing resetting itself fast enough. But overall, that's where it ends. Shank is probably going to be the Olaf of the patch, and I might be speaking too soon, and there might be a good shot that she fits in really well when we see the other kits. But at the moment, do not invest gear and do not invest any ability runes into Shank, because we just don't know. We just don't know, and there's nothing that jumps off the page outside of a passive with a cooldown. So overall, Shank, she's got okay stats, really nice speed, decent health, but that's kind of where it ends. And overall, both of the characters, and looking at the Wreck-It Ralph characters as a whole, Calhoun, still the winner out of the two. We'll have to see how the other Wreck-It Ralph characters look, but for now, just start slow farming them for the legendary event, and hopefully you don't need to take them much past Gear 6, because at the moment, Shank is not worth that. And King Candy, although I think it's going to be very strong for villains, you're going to have a full villains team to really make him work. Now again, disclaimer, Kristoff and Spin, they weren't good when they came out. They kind of looked average, and then they actually took over the meta for a while. So we'll have to see how this kind of all turns out together and where they're going to fit in. Right now, I do see myself using King Candy from time to time and Shank pretty much never, but we'll see how it goes. So my friends, that is going to be my opinions about the two newest characters in order to unlock the legendary. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, join the Cozy Club. It's absolutely free to have a rager here all night. Guys, thank you so much. And until next time, stay cozy.